Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
That you say?
Hello and welcome to the podcast. This week we're going to focus on a legend of the golden age of radio. William Conrad was a prominent figure of the age and left an indelible mark on the medium with his resonant voice and compelling performances. He was born John William Cann Jr. on September 27, 1920 in Louisville, Kentucky. Conrad's rich baritone voice became his most distinctive asset, paving the way for a remarkable career in radio. Conrad began his journey in the late 1930s in California. His voice quickly earned him roles as an announcer and narrator, but it was his talent for character portrayal that truly set him apart. During the 1940s, radio was America's primary source of entertainment, and Conrad capitalized on this, becoming a versatile actor across numerous genres. His most iconic role came in 1952 when he was cast as Marshal Matt Dillon in Gunsmoke. It was one of radio's most acclaimed Western dramas, known for its gritty realism and mature themes. Conrad's portrayal of Dillon was marked by a rugged, stoic demeanor perfectly complemented by his commanding voice, which brought depth and authenticity to the character. Our first story today comes from that series, but it isn't just another episode. Conrad himself wrote and directed the show in June of 1953. It is titled Sundown. At the time, battles between the Indians and the white man were all the rage. You couldn't watch TV or go to the theater without seeing it. But I'm going to guarantee you didn't see a story like the one that you're about to hear. It truly is special.
I think it was the nastiest weather I'd ever seen. It wasn't that there'd been a big storm or anything, it was just plain nasty. The sun hadn't shone for 3.5 weeks. Nothing but huge banks of black clouds that filled the sky and never moved. And when it finally broke, it was a downpour of the coldest and dreariest rain you ever saw. For 2 days, Chester and I never went out of the office. We didn't need to. There was nothing going on in town. There wasn't a soul on the streets. Everybody just holed up. Chester and I kept the fire going on the stove and tried to keep as warm as we could. And then on the morning of the third day...
Mr. Dillon? Mr. Dillon!
What?
Wake up, Mr. Dillon.
What? What is it, Chester? What's the matter, huh?
Come over here and look out the window. My goodness sakes alive.
Oh, what's the matter? What's happened?
Just look. It stopped raining.
Huh?
The clouds are beginning to blow away. Why, I bet you we'll be seeing the sun before the day is over.
Well, I hope you're right. We could use a little sunshine.
We sure could. You know, Mr. Dillon, I've been so blue for the last couple of days. I boiled some coffee for you. It's on the stove.
Oh, thank you, Chester.
Yeah, like I was saying, I've been just awful low, Mr. Dillon. It's funny how the weather affects you, isn't it?
Yeah, it does almost everybody, Chester. This coffee's good.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Chester, how'd you like to go for a little ride, huh? Make us feel good to get out in the open after being cooped up for the last couple of days. Why don't we ride down to old man Johnson's? I've been meaning to talk to him anyway.
Well, I say that's a wonderful idea, Mr. Dillon. I'd be proud to go. Besides, Thurlow needs a good workout. I don't know of anything that's worse for a horse than just standing around in a corral.
All right, Chester. I'm going to take time to shave, and then we'll get some breakfast and ride out.
Well, yes, sir, Mr. Dillon. Yes, sir. You were right, Mr. Dillon. Nothing like a ride in real brisk weather to make you feel fitter than a fiddle.
Well, I'd say it's a little more than brisk, Chester. It's downright cold. This wind doesn't help much.
Well, we haven't got much farther to go. How far would you say we've come?
Oh, about 15 miles.
Well, then we should be there pretty soon. There, look at there, Mr. Dillon. What did I tell you?
What?
There's a patch of sunlight just come through. Over there to the right, see? My, isn't that pretty?
Chester. There by that hackberry tree there in the sunlight. You see? What is that? Can you make it out?
Where? Oh, yeah, I do see something, but I can't...
Come on,
quite...
let's ride over to it, huh?
Well, Mr. Dillon, it looks like somebody all huddled up leaning against the tree. Why, it's an Indian.
Yeah, a woman. Hey, pull up here.
Oh.
I don't think she's heard us. Hello there.
Well, she didn't even look up, Mr. Dillon.
Hello. Is something wrong?
Well, there sure must be.
Here, let's walk up, Chester. Can we help you, miss?
She won't even lift her head.
Miss, what's wrong?
She looks sort of befogged, don't she?
Yeah. Miss, here, look at me. No, I'm not going to hurt you. Chester, she's burning up with fever.
Well, what in the world is she doing way out here in the middle of nowhere anyway? Being out here in all this weather, she's probably caught her death in the morning.
Yeah, you may be right, Chester. We're going to have to get her back to Dodge fast. She needs the doc real bad. Get the horses. We're going to have to hurry.
Mr. Dillon, did you notice what a pretty little girl she was? I declare I don't think I've ever seen a more beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And her hair. You know, I think Indian women have the prettiest hair in the whole world. Seems such a shame that such a pretty little thing should have to be all...
Matt?
Oh, hiya, Kitty.
One of the boys at the Texas Trail told me he saw you and Chester riding up the street here to Doc's office, and that you were carrying an Indian girl in your arms. He said she looked like she was dead. What happened?
Well, we found her out in the middle of the plains.
That's right, Miss Kitty. She was just sitting under a big old hackberry tree.
Well, what was wrong with her?
I don't know. Exposure, I guess.
Doc don't think there's much chance for her, Miss Kitty.
Oh, that's too bad.
Matt, you better come in.
Yeah.
Kitty.
Doc?
How is she, Doc?
She just regained consciousness. I'm afraid I can't see how she's still alive.
Well, you think I could talk to her?
Well, you can try. Certainly won't hurt anything.
But I'd like to find out who she is so that I can notify her people if...
Well, you better hurry.
Yeah. Miss? Miss, can you hear me? Miss, listen to me.
Go away.
Please, tell me who you are.
Leave me alone.
Won't you talk to me? Now, what's your name?
I want to die.
What happened? Why were you out on the plains all by yourself? Were you lost?
I want to die. I want to die. Alone.
Matt.
Yeah, I know. Miss, please, won't you tell me who your people are?
I want to die.
Well?
Doc, I'll be outside with Chester and Kitty.
All right.
When you come out, would you bring me her ring and that necklace she's wearing?
All right, Matt, if you want. But what...
Just bring them to me, will you?
Well, Matt?
Yeah. Chester, we got a job on our hands.
Yes, sir, Mr. Dillon?
There's something wrong about this, and I'm going to find out what.
What do you mean?
She was wearing a gold wedding ring.
Yes, but Mr. Dillon, Indians don't use wedding rings.
I know.
Then you mean you think she was married to a white man, Matt?
Yeah.
Here's the necklace, Matt.
Thanks, Doc. Have any of you heard of anybody around town marrying an Indian girl in the last year or so?
No, Matt.
No?
Well, there ain't but one squaw man in the whole town that I know of, Jack Benson. And he married his squaw some 8 or 10 years ago.
Well, then we're going to have to start from the other end. We've got to identify her. We'll have to find out what tribe she's from.
Well, she looks like an Arapaho, Matt, from her clothing.
Well, I thought that too, Doc, but which camp? There are 3 Arapaho camps within 40 miles of here.
Say, Mr. Dillon, maybe Great Eagle could help you.
Yeah. He's camped down by Sandy Fork now, isn't he?
He knows you. He's about the friendliest Indian around here these days.
Say, Matt, don't you think this might cause trouble if you let them know that a white man is mixed up in this?
What?
Wouldn't it be better to just bury her?
Do you think that's the right thing, Doc?
Oh, no, I guess not. But I was talking to Colonel Jackson out at the fort the other day, and he said he was expecting us to have some real Indian trouble any day now. And this might start something.
I know there's that possibility, Doc, but I also know that there was something behind this girl's death, and I think it's my duty to find out what. I'm sure I can talk to Great Eagle and get what information I need without stirring up anything.
I hope you're right, Matt.
Yeah, I hope I am, too. Chester?
Yes, sir, Mr. Dillon?
Get our things ready. We'll start for Great Eagle's camp tonight. I figured it'd take us about 5 hours, and I was pretty close to right. The sun had been up maybe 30 or 40 minutes when we came to the crest of a range of hills. And there, spread out below us alongside the Sandy Fork, was Great Eagle's camp. We were spotted a good while before we got there, and when we pulled up, all the squaws had disappeared, and we were greeted by what looked like the entire male population. They just stood and watched us sullenly as we dismounted.
I don't think they're too happy to see us, Mr. Dillon.
You may be right, Chester. I've come to see your leader, Great Eagle. Tell him his friend Matt Dillon has ridden from Dodge City to see him.
Maybe they don't understand.
No, they understand, all right. Please tell Great Eagle it's of importance that I see him.
You are not wanted here. Great Eagle will not see you.
Why don't you let Great Eagle decide that? Now tell him I wish to see him.
Great Eagle is ill, but I will tell him you are here.
I thought for a minute there that we'd rode all this way for nothing, Mr. Dillon.
Yeah, we may have, Chester.
I wouldn't say these fellows is very sociable, would you?
No.
Doc must have been right about trouble brewing. Well, the last time we was out here, Great Eagle was real friendly. I swear I don't know what we've done to make
Chester,
him feel so good.
You're talking too much.
Yes, sir.
Come. Here. Inside.
Matt Dillon, it is good to see you once more.
And you, Great Eagle.
You wish to talk with me?
Yes, I do. I'm in need of your help.
To be able to return your many kindnesses pleases me.
I would first like to explain to you that I am aware of the unrest between your people and mine. And it's my desire that what I tell you be as a confidence between friends. If it were known, it might cause further trouble.
It will be as a confidence.
Thank you. Well, yesterday we found a young girl on the plains. She suffered from exposure. So we took her back to Dodge City for medical attention as fast as we could, but we were too late. She was of your people. Her clothing told me that, so I came to you to help me identify her. I can't tell you why, but I feel that there was evil behind the death of this girl, and I must find out about it. You see, she was wearing a gold wedding ring, the ring of a white man.
Can you describe the girl?
Well, I can only tell you that she was of great beauty, and, well, here, she wore this necklace. It's unusual in design. I thought it might help in identifying her.
Yes, it helps.
Then she was from this camp? You knew her?
Yes, I knew her. She was my daughter.
I looked at Great Eagle's face, and all of a sudden, Doc's warning came back to me. I saw Chester out of the corner of my eye. He looked exactly the way I felt, that hopeless feeling of not knowing what to do. I guess we must have stood for maybe a minute. Nothing was said. This man sitting before us, this man of great dignity with his bronze face showing no emotion, just staring into nothing, holding the necklace in his huge hands.
Great Eagle, we had no idea.
Thank you. I understand.
I'm sorry to have to ask this now, Great Eagle, but do you know what might have happened?
I know nothing. Where is my daughter?
She is at Dr. Adams' office in Dodge City.
She will be buried here. I will come for her.
You mean come into Dodge?
I will be there before sundown of this day.
Well, Great Eagle, with this unrest between our peoples, I don't think it would be but wise to come right into town. There are people there that might cause trouble.
Before sundown, I will come for her.
But isn't it running a chance unnecessarily? We could arrange to meet you on the other side of the river, or maybe...
Before sundown of this day, with my braves, I will come into Dodge City for my daughter.
But you can't bring your braves right into... All right, Great Eagle, I'll do what I can to see that there's no trouble. Before sundown, then. We rode hard to get back to Dodge. There was a lot to be done. Chester didn't say anything, but I knew he was worried, and he wasn't alone. If this thing wasn't handled properly, it might turn into the worst trouble that any of us had ever seen. We got back into Dodge just before noon, and I sent Chester off to spread the word about what was going to happen. I figured it was better for everybody to know about it as soon as possible. Then if trouble did start, maybe I could stop it before Great Eagle arrived. I went to the office, tried to finish some work. But I kept seeing the girl in front of me. Hearing her say, I want to die. I want to die. Must have been 3 hours later when Chester came in. Told me that the trouble had started. It was Black Dawson down at the Alafraganza.
I'm going to... Wow! Wait a minute. If it isn't the big, brave U.S. Marshal himself. Look at him, boys. The man who's supposed to protect Dodge City.
All right, Black. You've said enough.
When did you start deciding how much people can say, huh, Marshal? Huh?
I'm taking this from you, Black, because I got enough trouble right now, but don't say any more. Now come outside with me and simmer down.
Come outside and simmer down. Why should I listen to an Indian lover? Huh? Yeah, a man who's going to let those dirty, stinking Indians come right into Dodge and take over.
All right. All right, shut up. Now you listen to me. And this goes for all of you. I'll not tolerate any trouble. When Great Eagle gets here, I don't want one wrong move out of any of you. Anything that happens here today might start a whole uprising among the Indians, and if you're too stupid to see that, you're going to be awful sorry. Now, I'm telling you right now, while Great Eagle's here, I'll kill the first man that starts trouble. An hour before sundown, the crowd started gathering along Front Street. They were talking and laughing and being loud, too loud. They were nervous and trying not to show it, but they all wanted a front seat at the big show. They didn't want to miss anything. And then Black Dawson and his gang came out of the Alafraganza and stood leaning up against a hitching rail. Finally, Chester came down from Boot Hill where he'd been on lookout, and he told me that he'd spotted Great Eagle and his braves. They were coming. I looked around. Everybody started to turn quiet. They knew. I told Chester to keep an eye on Dawson, and I started down the street. I crossed the plaza and walked to the river. Before the Indians started to cross the bridge, I stopped them. Great Eagle, I can't let you bring all your braves in. You may bring 2, and that's all. You see all those people over there? They're just itching for trouble, and I can't chance it. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is.
I would bring all my braves.
I'm sorry, Great Eagle, but don't try it. I turned and walked back into the plaza and stopped in front of Doc's office and stood, waiting. Great Eagle and his band didn't move. They just sat there on their horses, looking into the plaza. The crowd had stretched all along Front Street now, and they'd turned very quiet. Even Dawson and his gang were just standing glowering across at the bridge. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I waited. Must have been 5 minutes before Great Eagle turned and said something to his men and started out, with 2 of his braves following. Nobody in the crowd along Front Street moved or said a word.
Where is she?
In here. She's in there.
I want to talk. Come in with me.
All right.
Anoli. Her name means beautiful child. Is she not beautiful?
Yes. She is, Great Eagle.
Matt Dillon, I have done something today I have never before done. I have always thought myself a man of honor. But today I spoke a lie. To you.
To me?
Yes. I know of what happened to my daughter. I must tell you to regain at least part of my self-respect. All of it I can never regain. Many moons ago, my daughter disappeared. We searched for a long time, not knowing what had happened to her. 4 days ago, she came back. She told me of her marriage to a white man and how she was with child. Of how she had met this man on the prairie and had fallen in love with him. Of how they had gone to Hayes City. Of the great love they had for each other. And she told me of the slow change that came over him. When his fellow men began to laugh at him and with derision call him Squaw Man. And how the white man is ashamed of the Indian. The white man has great pride. She told me how he turned her away, told her to go back to her own people where she belonged.
Great Eagle, I'm very sorry.
At that moment, I was with great anger and pride. And for this, I will never again be a man of honor. I told her to go back and live with the white people in shame. That she was no longer an Indian. That the Indian, too, is a proud people. I am responsible for her death. I turned away from her. You may do what punishment you like with me. I killed my daughter.
No, Great Eagle, you didn't kill your daughter. She died because of pride. Yours and the white man's. As to your punishment, I think you're getting it right now. Now take her and go. As Great Eagle reached the bridge, the rest of his braves turned and joined him and rode slowly off across the prairie, out of sight. And along Front Street, the crowd started to break up and head for the bars to get drunk and laugh and brag about how brave they'd have been if anything had happened. Chester and I stood for a long time, and the streets were almost empty. It was sundown.
Mr. Dillon, I'd be right proud to buy a drink.
Chester, don't ever use the word proud in front of me again.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. Dillon.
No, Chester, I'm sorry. Come on, I'll buy you a drink.
So, what did you think of that one? In addition to Gunsmoke, Conrad lent his voice to countless other radio programs, including Suspense, Escape, and the CBS Radio Workshop. He showcased a remarkable range, voicing everything from heroic leads to sinister villains. Conrad himself estimated that he played more than 7,500 roles during his radio career. One of his very first jobs was at age 22 when he produced and acted in The Hermit's Cave, circa 1940. This one was a popular syndicated horror anthology series, so you can see that his skill extended beyond acting. But could he take on an entire story voicing all the parts and still keep the dramatic? Well, let's find out together. In May of 1956, he did an episode of Suspense. That show was known for bringing in superstars of the era and casting them in roles, well, that they normally would avoid. Like Fibber McGee as a police chief with a murderous thief in the back seat. I'll put a link for that one in the show notes. But back to Conrad. What I'm going to play for you is a horror story titled The Waxworks. This is one crazy story, but I'm going to let the Suspense's narrator tell you all about it.
And now, tonight's presentation of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense. This evening, Suspense brings you what we feel is a particularly unusual and absorbing story. No actors other than Mr. William Conrad will appear in its presentation. It's a study in terror which has few equals. So now, starring Mr. Conrad, here is tonight's suspense play by A.M. Burridge, The Waxwork.
While the uniformed attendants of Mariner's Waxworks were ushering the last stragglers through the great glass-paneled double doors, the manager sat in his office interviewing Raymond Hewson. The manager was speaking.
Oh, there's nothing new in your request, sir, and in fact we refuse it to different people, mostly young bloods who've tried to make bets about 3 times a week, I should say. We have nothing to gain and something to lose by letting people spend the night in our murderer's den. If I allowed it and some young idiot lost his senses, what would be my position, eh? But your being a journalist somewhat alters the case.
Hewson smiled. I suppose you mean that journalists have no senses to lose.
No, of course not. But one imagines them to be responsible people. Besides, we have something to gain here. Publicity and advertisement.
Yes, exactly, said Hewson. And there I thought we might come to terms. The manager smiled.
Yes, I know what's coming. You want to be paid twice, do you? You know, it used to be said years ago that Madame Tussaud would give a man £100 for sleeping alone in the Chamber of Horrors. Well, I hope you don't think that we've made any such offer. What is your paper, Mr. Hewson?
Well, I'm freelancing at present, sir, working on space for several papers. However, I would find no difficulty in getting the story printed. I'm sure the Morning Echo would use it like a shot. A night with Mariner's murderers. No live paper could turn it down, sir.
Yes. How do you propose to treat it?
Well, I shall make it gruesome, of course. Gruesome with just a saving touch of humor. The manager nodded and offered Hewson his cigarette case.
Very well, Mr. Hewson. You get your story printed in the Morning Echo, and there'll be a £5 note waiting for you when you care to come and call for it. But, first of all, you realize it's no small ordeal that you're proposing to undertake. I'd like to be quite sure about you. I'd like you to be quite sure about yourself. I own I shouldn't care to take it on. I should hate having to sleep down there, alone, among them.
Why? Asked Hewson.
Oh, I don't know. Isn't any reason, I suppose. I don't believe in ghosts. If I did, I should expect them to haunt the scene of their crimes or the spots where their bodies were laid, instead of a cellar which happens to contain their waxwork effigies. Well, it's just that I couldn't sit alone among them all night with their seeming to stare at me in the way they do. After all, they represent the lowest and the most appalling types of humanity. The whole atmosphere of the place is unpleasant. And if you're susceptible to atmosphere, sir, I warn you that you're in for a very uncomfortable night. Houston had known that from the moment when the idea first occurred to him. His soul sickened at the prospect. But he had a wife and a family to keep. So here was a chance not to be missed, the price of a special story in the Morning Echo, with a £5 note to add to it. Besides, if he wrote the story well, it might lead to an offer of regular employment. The manager smiled at him and rose. Well, I think the last of the people must have gone by now. There is one condition I'm afraid I must impose upon you, sir. I must ask you not to smoke. We had a fire scare down on the murderer's den this evening. I don't know who gave the alarm, but whoever it was a false one. Fortunately, there were very few people down there at the time, or there might have been a panic. Now, if you're ready, we'll make a move. He led the way through an open barrier and down ill-lit stone stairs, which conveyed a sinister impression of giving access to a dungeon. In a passage at the bottom were a few preliminary horrors, such as relics of the Inquisition, a rack taken from a medieval castle, branding irons, thumb screws, and other mementos of man's cruelty to man. Beyond the passage was the murderer's den. It was a room of irregular shape, with a vaulted roof and dimly lit by electric lights, burning behind inverted bowls of frosted glass. It was, by design, an eerie and uncomfortable chamber, a chamber whose atmosphere invited its visitors to speak in whispers. The waxwork murderers stood on low pedestals with numbered tickets at their feet. Recent notorieties rubbed dusty shoulders with the old favorites. Thurtell, the murderer of Weir, stood as if frozen in the act of making a shop window gesture to young Bywaters. And there was Lefroy, the poor half-baked little snob who killed for gain so that he might ape the gentleman. Within 5 yards of him sat Mrs. Thompson, that erotic romanticist hanged to propitiate British middle-class matronhood. Charles Peace, the only member of the vile company who looked uncompromisingly and entirely evil, sneered across a gangway at Norman Thorne. Brown and Kennedy, the two most recent additions, stood between Mrs. Dyer and Patrick Mahan. The manager, walking around with Houston, pointed out several of the more interesting of these unholy notabilities. That's Crippen. I expect you recognize him, insignificant little beast who looks as if he couldn't tread on a worm. Oh, and that's Armstrong. Looks like a decent, harmless country gentleman, doesn't he? And there's old Vaquier. You can't miss him, of course, because of his beard. And this one... Who's that? Houston asked in a whisper. Here, come here, have a good look at him. This is our star turn. He's the only one of the bunch that hasn't been hanged. The figure which Houston had indicated was that of a small, slight man, not much more than 5 feet in height. It wore little waxed mustaches, large spectacles, and a caped coat. There was something so exaggeratedly French in its appearance that it reminded Houston of a stage caricature. He could not have said precisely why the mild-looking face seemed to him so repellent, but he'd already recoiled a step, and even in the manager's company it cost him an effort to look again. But who is he asked. That, said the manager, is Dr. Baudet. Houston shook his head doubtfully. I think I've heard the name, but I forget in connection with what? The manager smiled. You'd remember better if you were a Frenchman. You know, for some long while, that man was the terror of Paris. He carried on his work of healing by day and of throat-cutting by night. Why, he killed for the sheer devilish pleasure it gave him to kill, and always in the same way, with a razor. After his last crime, he left a clue behind him which set the police upon his track. Oh, but he was much too clever for them. When he realized that the coils were closing about him, he mysteriously disappeared. And ever since, the police of every civilized country have been looking for him. There's no doubt that he managed to make away with himself, and by some means which has prevented his body coming to light, one or two crimes of a similar nature have taken place since his disappearance, but he is believed almost for certain to be dead, and the experts believe these recrudescences to be the work of an imitator. It's queer, isn't it, Mr. Hewson? How every notorious murderer has imitators. Hewson shuddered and fidgeted with his feet. I don't like him at all. What eyes he's got. Yes, this figure's a little masterpiece. You find the eyes bite into you, huh? Well, that's excellent realism, then, for Burdett practiced mesmerism and was supposed to mesmerize his victims before dispatching them. Indeed, had he not done so, it's impossible to see how so small a man could have done his ghastly work. There were never any signs of a struggle.
I thought I saw him move, said Hewson with a catch in his voice. The manager smiled.
You'll have more than one optical illusion before the night's out, I expect, sir. Well, I'm sorry I can't give you any more light because all the lights are on. For obvious reasons, we keep this place as gloomy as possible, Well, Mr. Hewson, good night.
Hewson wheeled a swivel chair, a heavy one upholstered in plush, a little way down the central gangway, and deliberately turned it so that its back was toward the effigy of Dr. Burdett. For some undefined reason, he liked Dr. Burdett a great deal less than his companions. Busying himself with arranging the chair, he was almost lighthearted. But when the manager's footfalls had died away and a deep hush stole over the chamber, he realized that he had no slight ordeal before him. The dim, unwavering light fell on the rows of figures which were so uncannily like human beings that the silence and the stillness seemed unnatural and even ghastly. He missed the sound of breathing, the rustling of clothes, the 101 minute noises one hears when even the deepest silence has fallen upon a crowd. And the air was as stagnant as water at the bottom of a standing pond. It must be like this at the bottom of the sea, he thought. He faced these sinister figures boldly enough. They were only waxworks. So long as he let that thought dominate all others, he promised himself that all would be well. It did not, however, save him long from the discomfort occasioned by the waxen stare of Dr. Burdett, which he knew was directed upon him from behind. The eyes of the little Frenchman haunted and tormented him, and he itched with a desire to turn and look. My nerves have started already, he thought, and then another voice in his brain spoke to him. It's because you're afraid that you won't turn and look at him. The two voices quarreled silently for a moment or two, and at last Hewson slewed his chair around a little and looked behind him. Among the many figures standing in stiff, unnatural poses, the effigy of the dreadful little doctor stood out with a queer prominence, perhaps because of a steady beam of light beat straight down upon it. Hewson flinched before the parody of mildness which some fiendishly skilled craftsman had managed to convey in wax, met the eyes for one agonized second, and then turned again to face the other direction. He's only a waxwork like the rest of you, Hewson muttered defiantly. You're all only waxworks. They were only waxworks, yes. But waxworks don't move. Oh, not that he had seen the least movement anywhere, but it struck him that in the moment or two while he'd looked behind him, there had been the least subtle change in the grouping of the figures in front. Crippen, for instance, seemed to have turned at least 1 degree to the left. Or, thought Hewson, perhaps the illusion was due to the fact that he had not slewed his chair back into its exact original position. Oh, but there were Brown and Kennedy, too. Surely one of them had moved his hands. Hewson held his breath for a moment, and then drew his courage back to him as a man lifts a weight. He took a notebook from his pocket and wrote quickly, "Memo. Deathly silence and unearthly stillness of figures. Like being at bottom of sea. Hypnotic eyes, Dr. Baudet. Figures seem to move when not being watched." He closed the book suddenly over his fingers and looked around quickly and awfully over his right shoulder. He had neither seen nor heard a movement, but it was as if some sixth sense had made him aware of one. He looked straight into the vapid countenance of Lefroy, which smiled vacantly back as if to say, "It wasn't I." No, of course it wasn't he, or any of them. It was his own nerves. Or was it? Then why all that silent unrest about him? A subtle something in the air which did not quite break the silence and happened, whichever way he looked, just beyond the boundaries of his vision. He swung round quickly to encounter the mild but baleful stare of Dr. Baudet, and then without warning he jerked his head back to stare straight at Crippen. He'd nearly caught Crippen that time. "You'd better be careful, Crippen, and all the rest of you. If I do see one of you move, I'll smash you to pieces. Do you hear?" He ought to go, he told himself. Already he had experienced enough to write his story, or 10 stories for the matter of that. Well, then, why not go? The Morning Echo would be none the wiser as to how long he'd stayed, nor would it care so long as his story was a good one. Yes, but the manager. One never knew. Perhaps the manager would quibble over that 5-pound note which he needed so badly. He wondered if his wife were asleep, or if she were lying awake and thinking of him. She'd laugh when he told her that he'd imagined. This was a little too much. It was bad enough that the waxwork effigies of murderers should move when they weren't being watched, but it was intolerable that they should breathe. Somebody was breathing. Or was it his own breath which sounded to him as if it came from a distance? He sat rigid, listening, straining, until he exhaled with a long sigh. His own breath, after all. Or, if not, something had divined that he was listening and had ceased breathing simultaneously. Hewson turned his head swiftly around and looked all about him out of haggard and hunted eyes. Everywhere his gaze encountered the vacant waxen faces, and everywhere he felt that by just some least fraction of a second he had missed seeing a movement of hand or foot, a silent opening, a compression of lips, a flicker of eyelids, a look of human intelligence, now smoothed out. They were like naughty children in a classroom, whispering, fidgeting, and laughing behind their teacher's back, but blandly innocent when his gaze was turned upon them. No, this would not do. This distinctly would not do. He must clutch at something, grip with his mind upon something which belonged essentially to the workaday world, to the daylight London streets. He was Raymond Hewson, an unsuccessful journalist, a living and breathing man, and these figures grouped around him were only dummies, so they could neither move nor whisper. Well, what did it matter if they were supposed to be lifelike effigies of murderers? They were only made of wax and sawdust and stood there for the entertainment of morbid sightseers and orange-sucking trippers. Oh, that was better. Now, what was that funny story which somebody had told him in the Falstaff pub yesterday? Oh, yes. He recalled part of it, but not all. For the gaze of Dr. Baudet urged, challenged, and finally compelled him to turn. Hewson half turned, and then swung his chair so as to bring him face to face with the wearer of those dreadful hypnotic eyes. His own eyes were dilated, and his mouth at first set in a grin of terror, lifted at the corners in a snarl, and then Hewson spoke and woke 100 sinister echoes. You moved! Yes, you did, you moved! I saw you! You moved! Then he sat quite still, staring straight before him, like a man found frozen in the Arctic snows. Dr. Baudet's movements were leisurely. He stepped off his pedestal with the mincing care of a lady alighting from a bus. The platform stood about 2 feet from the ground, and above the edge of it a plush-covered rope hung in arc-like curves. Dr. Baudet lifted up the rope until it formed an arch for him to pass under, stepped off the platform, and sat down on the edge, facing Hewson. Then he nodded and smiled and said, "Good evening. I need hardly tell you that not until I overheard the conversation between you and the worthy manager of this establishment did I suspect that I should have the pleasure of a companion here for the night. You cannot move or speak without my bidding, but you can hear me perfectly well. Something tells me that you are, shall I say, nervous? My dear sir, have no illusions. I am not one of these contemptible effigies miraculously come to life. I am Dr. Baudet himself." He paused, coughed, and shifted his legs. Pardon me, but I am a little stiff. Please, let me explain. Circumstances with which I need not fatigue you have made it desirable that I should live in England. I was close to this building this evening when I saw a policeman regarding me, I thought, a little too curiously. I guessed that he intended to follow and perhaps ask me embarrassing questions, so I mingled with the crowd and came in here. A coin bought my admission to the chamber in which we now meet, and an inspiration showed me a certain means of escape. I raised a cry of fire, and when all the fools had rushed to the stairs, I stripped my effigy of the caped coat which you behold me wearing, donned it, hid my effigy under the platform at the back, and took its place on the pedestal. The manager's description of me, which I had the embarrassment of being compelled to overhear, was biased, but not altogether inaccurate. Clearly, I am not dead, although it is as well that the world think otherwise, no? His account of my hobby, which I have indulged for years, although through necessity less frequently of late, was in the main true. For you see, the world is divided between collectors and non-collectors. With the non-collectors, we are not concerned, eh? The collectors collect anything according to their individual tastes, from money to cigarette cards, from moths to matchboxes. I collect throats. He paused again and regarded Hewson's throat with interest, mingled with disfavor. I am obliged to the chance which brought us together tonight, and perhaps it would seem ungrateful to complain. From motives of personal safety, my activities have been somewhat curtailed of late years, and I am glad of this opportunity of gratifying my somewhat unusual whim. But you, sir,
You have such a skinny neck. If you will overlook a personal remark, I should never have selected you from choice. I like men with thick necks. Thick, red necks.
He fumbled in an inside pocket and took out something which he tested against a wet forefinger, and then proceeded to pass gently to and fro across the palm of his left hand.
This is a little French razor. The blade, you will observe, is very narrow. They do not cut very deep, but deep enough. In just one little moment, you shall see for yourself. And now, I shall ask you the little civil question of all the polite barbers. Does the razor suit you, sir?
He rose up, a diminutive but menacing figure of evil, and approached Houston with the silent, furtive step of a hunting panther.
You will have the goodness to raise your chin a little, eh? Oh, thank you. And a little more, just a little more, eh? Thank you. Merci, monsieur. Merci, merci. Merci.
Over one end of the chamber was a thick skylight of frosted glass, which by day let in a few sickly and filtered rays from the floor above. After sunrise, these began to mingle with the subdued light from the electric bulbs, and this mingled illumination added a certain ghastliness to a scene which needed no additional touch of horror. The waxwork figures stood apathetically in their places, waiting to be admired or execrated by the crowds who would presently wander fearfully among them. In their midst, in the center gangway, Houston sat still, leaning far back in his swivel chair. His chin was up-tilted as if he were waiting to receive attention from a barber. And although there was not a scratch upon his throat, nor anywhere upon his body, he was cold and dead. Dr. Baudet, on his pedestal, watched the dead man unemotionally. He did not move, nor was he capable of motion. But then, after all, he was only a waxwork.
So, did you find that Conrad was a pretty talented guy? Well, he was that. As television rose to prominence in the 1950s, many radio stars struggled to transition due to the visual nature of the new medium. Although Conrad did not reprise his role as Dillon on TV's Gunsmoke, that part went to James Arness, he found success in television and film, both in front and behind the camera. One of my very favorite of his TV shows was Cannon. It was a detective series produced by Quinn Martin that aired from 1971 to 1976 on CBS. William Conrad played the title character, Private Detective Frank Cannon. Amazing, but when you watch this one today, it's still really good. I have one more radio recommendation from the Conrad repertoire. He did an episode of the CBS Radio Workshop titled 1,489 Words in February of 1957. It remains a favorite of mine, and I wanted to play it today, but we ran out of time. I will have a link to it in the show notes. Well, those are my thoughts and knowledge of the man known as William Conrad. I hope that you enjoyed the journey and the show. It's always a pleasure to bring you these, and I'll see you next week with another double feature. Thank you for listening. was episode number 685, and it was brought to you by Audible. You can start your own amazing adventures today at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. If you do that, you'll be helping me out. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button helps us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.